Hello folks, and welcome to this week's episode of Tippcast with myself, Shane Stapleton, Shane Brophy in the middle there, and Tommy Dunne, former Tip coach and former hurler of the year on the far right hand side there. How are you doing, lads?
Great, Shane. Nice to be with you.
Yeah. I'll start off with you, Tommy, then. Just the week, or the hurling landscape we're seeing this year. What are your thoughts on what you've seen so far, and can anyone keep into Limerick?
Well, I'd say the answer to the second question at the minute is it's hard to see anyone keeping into them, unfortunately. The landscape, as I see it at the minute, is it's hard to get a gauge. I think I've been thinking about it a little bit there for the last few weeks. It's hard to get a gauge. I think a lot of teams will be better. Well, certainly need to be better, and probably will be better when the championship starts. So, for example, I thought there was a strong possibility of Cork getting a bounce with Pat Ryan as the manager this year, and then they were going okay, had a good win in round one in the league against the All-Ireland champions, and I said, this could be something here. And then in the league semi-final in Nolan Park, you saw a kind of a no-show job. So I think they will be better. I think in the championship. I think Waterford will be a lot better in the championship. I think Galway will probably be a good bit better in the championship. So the thing with the league is it's just hard to get a proper gauge. I think the Tip Limerick game was a genuinely intense game for as long as Tip could stay with them. And I think that was actually maybe possibly a fair reflection of where Limerick are at relative to Tip and probably some of the rest of the teams as well.
Shane, do you want to come in there?
Yeah. I suppose it's it's a strange one at the moment. Like as I say, Limerick are just a nice bit ahead of everyone else. It's I suppose it's fair to say maybe after league you're probably looking at maybe Tip are probably second in the pecking order. Maybe because I did think that Limerick Tip game was a good.
I think Shane might be breaking up there just a little bit. Maybe you get him to click back in. So Tommy, you're on also for the reason of the 2023 Championship Preview Night. This is the Gortigary Parents Association. Can you talk to us a little about this? You have a stellar lineup with James O'Connor, Shane McGrath and Johnny Pilkington.
Yeah, thanks, Shane, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk about it. And it's a nice lineup, isn't it? And it's one of the great things about the GAA. When I reached out to the three lads, they were back to me within minutes with a thumbs up to say they'd be there, and it's just class. They're class people, and even though I know the lads, but we wouldn't be in contact all that regularly, but still, when you reach out to do something in a small community for a small school, they're back to help you if they can at all. And I just it's really uplifting, and something that it's really beautiful about the GAA as an organisation, that we're all we're all a bit like that, aren't we? Willing to help if we can at all. So delighted, and the whole community around Gortigary are thrilled that they're three really strong personalities with influential in their own way, still within the GAA, which is great, and still very, very relevant, and have lots of interesting things to share. And obviously their playing careers are, when I was just doing a bit of research, to go through stuff with them, to see what they have achieved in terms of a list of successes, it's absolutely, it's off the wall, you know what I mean? And so it'll be nice to click back in on some of that stuff with people from near and maybe far away as well, that will remember some of those. A lot of it is in the 90s. Shane McGrath probably was only a young lad when Johnny started off, and James a little bit, but still we're delighted that the three of them can attend, and we're really looking forward to it. And it's the context then is I'm involved with Gortigary National School here. It's a three teacher school with 63 students in it, and it's effectively a fundraiser which is run by the school's Parents Association, of which I'm treasurer, God help us. And we do a couple of fundraisers every year, and we were thinking about something there a little while ago, and this came up as an option, and we're lucky to have the use of the community hall, which is right beside the school, which can take the event, and hopefully we'll get 170 or 180 people in to experience it and hopefully enjoy a good night.
Yeah, and we'll share the link to that. There's a QR code that people can click on. You're going to do MC as well. Do you enjoy the challenge doing that? Have you done that before?
Yeah. No, this is my first foray into your world, lads. So so I'm watching all you experts there very closely behind the scenes, even though you don't realize it, to see how you get the best out of your guests. So I'm a nervous wreck, but hopefully we'll have a bit of fun. The only thing is, if things go south, we have three pretty good lads to talk us through the whole thing. So we should be okay in terms of not being stuck for something to say.
Just a reminder, that's on this Saturday at 8:30 p.m. We'll put up the link there. So it's bit.ly/GaryNS. There was a disappointing incident at the weekend, Tommy. There was, racist abuse directed towards Lee Chin at the end of a challenge match, which was also a fundraiser between Tipperary and Wexford. And I'm sure Dara Egan was, being a Tipperary man, obviously true and true, and the other side with Wexford as well. Tough one, for him as well, a tough one for everyone involved. But obviously no place for it. It doesn't reflect on everybody, obviously, but like one person's actions kind of just tarnishes the whole thing.
That's right, and it was awful. It's just shocking, and it's terrible, and you wonder why people have to resort to saying derogatory, making derogatory remarks against players. It's just it's appalling, really, and it's absolutely no place in any sport. And the GA is something we're all very proud of, and every GA person was horrified to know what happened at a GA event. So we just hope that there's probably an opportunity here as well for the GA to take action, proper action, and punish the person that's responsible, because whether it doesn't matter who you support really, or whether he's a Tip person or a Wexford person or a supporter or whatever, you're an individual and you're responsible for your own actions the minute you go into any sporting event. And this is just not right, and it has to be dealt with, and hopefully the person can be identified and be made responsible for his actions. That should be, there shouldn't be anything wrong with following that up, and hopefully because until, I'd say, action is taken, then the likelihood is that it can happen again, and people think it might be okay to do this, and it's just not. It's just absolutely no place for it in GA or in any sport.
Shane, what has been the fallout that you've experienced since this happened?
Actually, I think there's been just utter disgust really locally since, I suppose, it started to come out. The news started to emerge on Saturday evening. I'd agree with Tommy. I think this is the perfect opportunity for Croke Park to make an example of the individual involved, and maybe it might scare some people straight that are maybe of the same mindset that you can't just use any derogatory term or a racist slur to have a go at it at an individual. Like I can't for the life of me think of, okay, you might have been annoyed maybe with something Lee Chin did in the challenge match, but why not use number 14 or say full forward? Why put the slur he used in front of it? Like, it's hard to understand. So look, I think Croke Park are the lead investigator on this. So hopefully it's quick, and I believe the gentleman involved has made contact to the county board and offered an apology, and I don't know whether, I assume he's willing to speak to Lee Chin about it as well. So look, I think 48 weeks is the maximum suspension that can be applied here, and I would assume it's going to be done. But in terms of, I suppose, making an example of the person, I think that GA have got to come down hard on this.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. There's news coming out that Cathal Barrett is going to be ready for the Munster Championship. Obviously, Tipperary are against Clare in the first round in Ennis on the 23rd of April. Tommy, how important is he in the dressing room? You know, you've been there and you've seen him operate over the years. How important is he?
Oh, he's a huge player. Like, you know, he's an absolutely huge player with huge experience and he's a proven player. And, you know, particularly for Tip at the stage they're at where they're in, you know, we're going to see a lot of inexperienced players during this championship. So having a proven player of that caliber and that quality available in a position that it's quite difficult to actually play in if you're a new player coming into the championship. So it would be great news if he has recovered and he is fit, because you know what he brings to it at full throttle is really, really significant, and it would be a vital part of stabilizing the back line and making the team better. And it's great news. I just heard it last week that it was a great chance, and you know, it's great credit due to people who are rehabbing him there over the last number of weeks, because it's fairly demanding with you know, you don't have a lot of time to play with. So fingers crossed that he will make it. But he would be a great addition. Would be a great addition, and I'm sure the boys would be delighted to have him back. And he's good in the dressing room too. You know, he's a big personality.
Particularly for Tommy for that game. Like, it's Ennis, you need a hard-nosed defender and that sort of an atmosphere. Like, what is he there 8 or 9 years now? Like, that's so important.
Yeah, no, 100%. You know, Ennis is a tough place to go, and in the first game of the championship, you're going to get a full on assault from Clare. So there's no doubt about that. And he's been down there before. He knows all about it. It's not going to phase him too much. So it'd be great to have him around for that game. And it's a huge game in the context of the championship anyway, because you know, the second game I think is against Limerick. So you want to have something in the bag after 2 games, that's for sure and certain. And I think you know, it is an opportunity in Ennis maybe to get that.
Just Tommy, from another one for me, in terms of, like, you were the last 4 last 5 years you were in part of the round robin. Like, how hard is it to, you want to get off to a winning start but not throw all your eggs into the one basket just in case you lose your first game and then you're ended up demoralized for 3 more. How hard of a balancing act is that?
Yeah, well, it is tough. Like, it's not the end of the world if you don't win your first match, but what you definitely don't want in the first match is a complete and utter systems failure. You know what I mean? That sends you right back to the very start again. And so you can definitely live with the loss, but if you end up on the wrong side of a result, it's bad enough. But if you're on in a situation on the Sunday evening where you're back to square one, you just don't have the time to actually go at that. Do you know what I mean? So straight away you're kind of firefighting. So I don't think Tip are going to be in anything like that situation this time around, because I think they have a lot of good work done over the last number of months, and the league has seems to have given them pretty solid foundation. And I think Tip probably know where they're at with the majority of the players that are going to be in the championship squad. So and I think they've been pretty consistent in terms of their performances. So I think all those signs are healthy. So, and like the championship, the round robin, you know, it's like everything. There's pluses and minuses to it, but you know, it seems to be a lot of teams around a similar level, with the exception of Limerick. So, and if you take last year, like, even though it was a very, very poor campaign, like, the reality was on game 4, if Tip had won, they were going to qualify. So you're definitely, if you're, you know, depending on results, obviously, you know, the championship is likely to be wide open going into game 3 and game 4.
Tommy, just of the players that have come through this year, so players you would have seen over the last couple of years as well, and I mean, Tipperary are a little bit unfortunate that Barry Heffernan's injured, Craig Morgan, Ger Brown and so on. There's a lot of injuries there. Are you happy with the progress that the players have shown this year, the new lads who've been thrown in, and the style they're playing?
Yeah, I am. I think it's really, really positive to see progress in players. It's, from a coach, and even with just your coaching hat on, there's nothing more sad. And they're getting to the stage where you can actually put them in and let them have a real go.
I think the line's just breaking up there for Tommy. Maybe he'll be able to click back in a moment. But I suppose, Shane, just when we're talking about that as well, like Ennis might be a tough place to go, and I was going to ask Tommy about this as well. It's only 4 years ago that Tipperary went to Ennis and battered Clare. Won by about, was it 14 or 15 points that day? So, I mean, there's always hope that Tipperary can go there with a lot of the players who've done that and feel good about themselves.
Oh, that's it. And like, there's no mistake. As much as we want to win that game, like Clare are probably under the greatest pressure because like it's their home game. Like they've got to, they need to get the 2 points. And look, they're under a bit of pressure as also from last year. Like they had a good season last year that they probably got as close as anyone to beating Limerick. Okay, they flopped in the All-Ireland semi-final, but look, things like that can happen. Like they have to show they learned from last year. They've arguably got a stronger squad, Clare, with Mark Rogers and Aidan McCarthy back. Like if they put their best 15 on the field, they're going to be very, very hard to beat. It's just that I think Clare are sort of one of those Jekyll and Hyde teams. Like they shouldn't show much in the league, but then in the one match, they had to show something after their poor performance against Limerick. They went out against Wexford. Okay, it was a poor Wexford time. But they absolutely mowed them down. So like if Clare are on it, they're very, very hard to stop. And I just like that they're Tony Kelly didn't show an awful lot in the league. It's just like they're building him up nicely. They didn't produce Shane O'Donnell either. So like I think it's a big year for Clare. I think it's a year where, okay, Limerick are the top dogs. But I think if Clare are probably at the stage where O'Donnell, Kelly probably are in their prime now, and if they don't maybe win an All-Ireland in the next 2 years, they'll be on the decline slightly.
Yeah, so Tommy, just to bring you back to the question we'd asked you there, because it broke up as you were answering it. The players that have come through, and actually also the likes of Michael Breen being moved to full back, how do you think that's worked? The fact that Brian O'Mara is back this year as well, able to go. How do you think the young lads are developing?
Yeah, look, from what I've seen, I think it's really positive. I think it's really encouraging, and I think there's definitely progress there. But like there's still the caveat that like the league is not the true measure of the progress. Like that, unfortunately, that is the reality. The championship will be the measure. But I do think there's a reasonable chance that it's going to be we're going to be positive about it during the championship. I really think the Breen thing. When it started, I thought the chances of that being successful were probably on the slim side. Because it's a huge change. Like it's a really, really huge change. So the fact, and there's great gratitude to Mikey Breen for and the management and coaches for giving that a really good chance of being successful. But the true measure will be over the championship. But I do think it has a great chance of working out, and I think I'd be confident that that'll be okay. But on that one, like it's the chances of that working depend really on how the backline performs as a unit rather than just one person. But I think that's definitely a positive change, and there's a bit of the group seems to be re-energized. You know what I mean? Like there's even Seamus Kennedy going up into the half forward line. You see another dimension to what he can offer. Brian O'Mara being available and slotting in there fairly well is definitely another plus. and you've Garrod O'Connor, who's, scoring fairly well and being influential in games. Tynan coming in and, making a really, really big impact as well. So like they're all really really important features and have definitely brought the team forward. But the true measure will be in Ennis. I think after games 1 and 2, having this conversation will be interesting. And I think that's but that's exciting in a way. And I think we're going to hold up pretty well.
Yeah, Shane, do you want to come in?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, like, I suppose the styles of play, and I suppose the way everybody's trying to wonder how do you break down Limerick, and I just wonder, are we getting to a stage now where somebody like Tip has got to be true to themselves while also taking in elements of the modern game? Because I think if everybody tries to replicate Limerick, nobody's going to beat them because they nearly have it perfected at this stage.
Is that for Tommy? Yeah, Tommy,
Yeah.
If that question is for you.
Sorry, you were breaking in and up. Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I don't think you can. I don't think there's any team that can do what Limerick are doing at the minute. You know what I mean? So you have to be, and I'd see that a bit with Tip, that they are actually trying to do their own thing. And that's when Tip have always really been at their best, where they can actually play their own game that is true to themselves. I think one of the way I'd see it this year with them, and hopefully this will be the case, is that we actually have much more of a running element in our team when we want to play that style. But I don't think you can play that style for a full 70 minutes. I don't see that being the case with Tip. You know what I mean? And I think maybe that might be a lesson that could be taken out of the league game against Limerick in the semi-final in there, where if you stay trying to run balls up through the middle of the field against them, like eventually, unless you have huge physicality and energy and impact off the bench, you're just going to run into trouble. So, but I do think, point is valid. Like, you're trying to be them is not going to be the way to beat them. You know what I mean? But it's bigger for Tip. It's a bit broader than that. It's about how what our level of performance is going to be like against Clare, against Cork, and against Waterford. That will determine how successful Tip's season is, I think.
We were talking about it a couple of weeks ago, and like even looking at the game a couple of years ago when Tip started so well, and then Limerick turned it around, the 16-point turnaround, what they did to Tip recently, and also even the league final there. Kilkenny were brilliant for the first maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and then Limerick just took a stranglehold. And we were sort of wondering, we were talking about, like, could it be a thing where early in the second half you make 4 to 5 changes around the middle of the field and just try and bring in that bit of energy? Because as you said, you can't keep it up for 70 minutes. Or is that just kind of pie in the sky talk?
Yeah, I don't know. Can you, but then you're just doing something to suit that particular opposition. Like the first thing Tip have to worry about is Ennis. Like the Limerick thing isn't on the agenda whatsoever. I think if Tip, now, I'm not saying you're wrong, Shane, on adopting a tactic like that. I would just be uncomfortable. I just mean specifically
during a Limerick game only. Like if you were to take a Limerick game, that's what I mean.
No, but I think you don't have to go into that isolation until it becomes a knockout game, if you know what I'm saying. So and if and when it does, then it's a whole different dynamic, and then you have to put all the options on the table to see what can you do. But I think in the context of the round robin, I think if Tip go to Ennis and produce a proper performance, then I think we'll be healthy enough going into the Limerick game in game 2, and healthy enough for games 3 and 4. That's kind of that's what I'm interested in. I think that's the way I'd be looking at it anyway. I think a lot hinges on our performance in Ennis in game 1.
Yeah, just going back to Limerick, like I suppose it'll be fascinating to see what Waterford do with them, because we know Davey loves coming up with something new, a new style, or some throwing a curveball in there. I suppose we'll learn an awful lot for maybe what teams might try against Limerick, because as I said, Davey Fitz loves trying something new, doesn't he?
Yeah, there could be, I'm very interested to see what Waterford come with. Like Dave Limerick in game 1, I think, is that right?
Yeah.
And like, Waterford, to my mind, didn't show their hand in the league, and I think that was, there was logic, but I think they're going to have to show their hand soon. Whether he shows it in game 1, I'd be amazed if he doesn't. If Waterford don't come with some sort of performance against Limerick in game 1, and then there'll be learnings in that for everybody, I'm sure.
And just the Tipperary Miners.
I actually think Waterford. I think Waterford could be very, very dangerous. I think they could be very dangerous if game 1 goes well for them.
Yeah, Tommy, just the Tipperary Miners and under-20s haven't been having it all their own way lately. In terms of the talent coming through with Tipperary, both the stuff, the lads that are coming through that'll probably just out of under-20s, the lads who are coming into under-20 and minor, are you impressed with the level of talent that Tipperary are going to have to work with both now and in the next few years?
Look, I'm not really in the best position to say. I haven't been at the games. I've only seen the games, bits and pieces. So, but I think and I think like the under-17s had 2 away games to start with, which, that was a bit tough. And it was a bad look to get 2 away games early on. Going away in midweek to Páirc Uí Chaoimh and Ennis, that's not simple and these are only young lads as well. So, but I think the broader picture is really about our structures at academy level and our player development in general, and how does that compare with gold standard, or what the best practices are. And I'm not really I'm not in any position, because I don't know how good or bad it is. But we are the current under-17 All-Ireland champions. Our under-20s of last season were narrowly beaten by Limerick. So I don't think there should be maybe any alarm bells, but obviously results haven't gone our way this year, and that can happen. But I don't think, as I say, I don't think it's necessarily a disaster. The results are disappointing, but I think it's always healthy after a couple of results to actually evaluate what our structures are like that are producing players, and that comes down to club level as well. And I've been elected coaching officer in Tuam this year, and that's all these things are very high on the agenda about are we giving our players the best chance at being as good as they possibly can be as they go through their underage grades, and that's something that comes right down to the level, not just at county level.
Tommy, you've been great with your time. Just to ask you one final thing before you go. Fergal Horgan, he's quit as an inter-county referee. He's been frustrated with the lack of game time that he's had during the last 2 years, and he was talking about an imbalance in the referees' appointments and not getting a fair crack at the whip for Munster referees. How good is he, and what do you reckon the standard of refereeing is like? I mean, it seems strange that Fergal Horgan isn't getting matches, because he seemed to be up at the top level.
Yeah, I was really very, very surprised to see that news, and it must I'd say it's come as a shock to a lot of people, and I'd say it's come as a shock to the GA as well. He's very, very high profile referee, a referee that has been very has been at the over a fair period of time. So for him to walk away is a fairly major statement, and particularly at a time when referee recruitment is very, very challenging, to say the least. Now, this isn't a good news story by any means. So, I think it would be important that it's taken heed of, to see if, I haven't read his comments or the details of them, only just the headlines. But, I wonder, are there other referees of his caliber that feel the same way? And if so, why is that? And, is there something going on in the background? And clearly for him, he felt that, things weren't right. And, it's very sad to lose a referee of that quality, lads, because it's a very difficult job. And he was a really, really good referee that understood the game very well, and always, no, he didn't get everything right. No referee ever does that. But I think his style of refereeing, was always conducive to, letting the game go within reason and letting players express themselves and allowing the physicality to be in the game without, he wasn't a sort of a petty referee, if I could describe it like that. And never heard too many fellas having too many bad things to say about him in terms of the inter-county game, where I thought he always did, had pretty good performance. So it's very disappointing to see that. And hopefully there isn't a precedent there,
It's interesting you mentioned his style of refereeing, because somebody kind of made a quip, the way he lets the game go, that Fergal Horgan's going to hang up his whistle if he can actually find the thing in the first place. I thought that was very funny.
Yeah, well, the referees, you never really know too much about how they're evaluated, how their performances are analysed, and it's not, you don't expect transparency and all that kind of thing. But this is a very, very strange one. It's a very strange one, and it's very regrettable. That's all I can sort of say in it at the minute.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, Tommy, you've been great with your time. Just a reminder that the Gurtagary Community Hall will host that great championship preview night you're going to have with James O'Connor, Shane McGrath and Johnny Pilkington this weekend. 20 quid in. You can click the QR code to find the tickets, and we'll also share the link, which is bit.ly/Gurtagary NS. Tommy, thank you very much for joining us, and best of luck.
And you can rock up and pay you can rock up and pay at the door on the night as well, lads. You don't have to have them pre-bought. So everyone is welcome. Hope to see you all there.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much, Tommy.
Thanks, lads. Appreciate it.
Okay, great to have 2001 Hurler of the Year, Tommy Dunne, on the show there. Your own thoughts on Fergal Horgan? I mean, I thought it was very surprising he wasn't getting more games, because, and I'm just worried that the likes of maybe John Keenan, who was over that Munster final last year, and he let it go, and, the lads obviously weren't sparing the timber in the match. But that's when it's exciting.
Yeah, it's when I heard the interview last night, I said you don't hear too many of those sort of interviews where a lad walks out the door and he leaves a grenade in behind him as he's walking out. But geez, he let his feelings known, in fairness. It was didn't he actually realise he only got 2 league games this year, which is very. So you think there was 5 rounds, and then you have semis and finals that's all he got. He really let him be known, a guy that was injured from us got more games than he did. I don't think you can complain too much about. I don't think he was saying anything about big games. He's done 3 All-Irelands. He'll go down in history in terms of that. But I thought he's the nature of the comments. He seems very, very sore. Towards the end of the interview, he more or less said he wouldn't recommend refereeing to somebody coming through. You think a guy that's refereed 3 All-Ireland finals to say he got an awful lot out of it. He does the element of it. And then the tone of it. He's very, very sore. I'd love to think that maybe he won't be lost to the GA, because I do believe he's not going to referee. From what I led to believe, he won't be refereeing club matches, which would be another huge loss. And I know I've interviewed him a few years ago, and I know one thing that he's very frustrated with over the years with the lack of support. But I'd love to think maybe if he's not going to referee anymore, that somebody within the Referees Association with Tipperary, and he was clear to stress that he was very supportive of West Tipperary and County Tipperary referees, that he's not lost to them, that if he has ideas of how to provide support for referees, that maybe he's brought on board, and maybe allowed maybe to explore how if he wasn't getting support, how would he envisage providing support maybe to the next level of referees that are coming along, and maybe that would maybe end up getting its way to Croke Park and becoming a national team. Because there's no doubt about it. Excuse me. There is an element that once you're given a whistle and a set of cards that you're on your own really, and you're being assessed. There's very, very little after that. There definitely does need to be a support mechanism out there for not only club referees but inter-county referees. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, interesting comment here. This is referring back to what we were talking about earlier in terms of the abuse suffered by Lee Chin. Dan Delaney commenting, lads, this verbal abuse is nothing new. My lad Tom Delaney was abused at a club minor football match. It's going on all over, no end. Result, it has really affected him. That's really disappointing to hear as well. As we're talking about Tipperary minors, well, Tom, of course, was the star player last year.
It's. I'm not surprised, really. Look, we all know, like, Tom, an outstanding player last year for the Tip Minors, won an All-Ireland medal, and you just know there's idiots out there who are just going to throw his background at him, and it has absolutely nothing got to do with his ability. And look, the people making those comments, look, they're the lowest of the low. They're not Tip supporters, they're not GA supporters. Anybody who throws a slur at anybody, if you want to be critical of a player's performance, his background or his heritage, anything has nothing got to do with it. Jesus, like, grow up, like, the people who are making these comments. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, and a comment in on Twitter then also from Daglan O'Hanlon is, we respect there was a punch-up involving Wexford, Lee Chin and Tip players on the sideline. The fan got a bit carried away and called Mr. Chin. I think people who've seen the video know what they said. Well, I've heard far worse abuse thrown in Premier League matches, e.g. Arsenal versus Liverpool. That said, it was not nice. Now, look, grand, you can sort of qualify and stratify in terms of like what the levels of abusive terms are, but it's just kind of the meaning behind it, you know.
It is, yeah. There's no doubt about it. It is like, why not say, hey, Mr. Chin or number 14, like, why did Chinaman have to come into it? Like, so.
Yeah, there's lots of expletives that are somewhat acceptable. Yeah. Okay, well, look, we kind of, Tom Delaney, we were talking about there as a minor last year, brilliant. The minors this year, 213 to 1-8. I know it was last Tuesday night, so it was a while ago. We didn't have a show last week because I was off gallivanting in America. But Tipperary were well behind it, 173 at the break. Made a good burst, but ultimately Cork had too much.
It's the second defeat. I know, look, 2 away games against Clare and Cork is tough, but yeah, they're struggling a bit this year. I know they had to find an awful lot of new players. They're finding scoring a bit tough. 14 points against Clare, 1-8 against Cork. Okay, the conditions weren't hectic in Páirc Uí Chaoimh last Tuesday week, so look, they're under serious pressure now. Look, they will hope maybe back next Tuesday night at home to Limerick they can get a win and maybe get a win over Waterford and maybe finish on a high. It'll be tough to make the top 3 at this stage, but look, it was always going to be difficult finding effectively. I don't think there was any starting players from last year's All-Ireland team back again. There was a couple of guys on the subs bench, but I haven't seen either game, but it does look like maybe we're a little lightweight at minor this year. Maybe we just don't have the big physical players out there in the club level to maybe make up the maybe have more physically strong guys. With James Woodlock and his selectors would have trawled the county, and look, they would have thought that they have the best group of minor hurlers to have at the moment. And look, maybe the soft conditions are not helping either. Like, so maybe if things start to dry up, and maybe the drier ball and the quicker ball might help some of our lighter players. But look, all is not lost yet. If Tip win their last 2 games, they have a chance of getting into the knockout stages.
Well, I'll tell you, last night a pitch had to be changed just before we did training up here in Dublin, so I don't know if it's changing quick enough. The under-20s as well, of course, like you mentioned earlier, came quite close against Limerick last year. Almost felt like it wasn't too far away. Opening games, though, we've seen a draw in Clare, late leveler from the hosts in that game, and then defeat to Cork as well. So it's not going exactly as Brendan Cummins would like at the moment.
No. I was at Páirc Uí Chaoimh for the Clare Cork game last week. Like, for the first 20-25 minutes, they were terrific. Like, 4 points up, great work, good intensity, using the ball very, very well. But once Páirc put the clampers on. I suppose it was just disappointing the way Tip didn't really know how to respond. There's no doubt about they're definitely playing the modern game, working the ball out from the back. But I would still, I think it was something I mentioned on our last show 2 weeks ago. I do think we're overplaying the short stuff. I think our inside forwards are not getting enough quality ball. I know Brendan Cummins, the manager, stressed that we were under an awful lot of pressure around the 45, 65 in terms of not getting clean looks to deliver that ball in. But I just thought it was just too easy for Cork in the second half, and we were working the ball out, and then they put the clamps on around the 45 and 65, and it led to the Cork goal, which was the key scorer. It led to from a turnover there to work the ball up to young Cunningham, and he was a brilliant finish into the corner of the net, an excellent goal. So like they'll have had time, hopefully, maybe to rectify. They have Limerick coming up now on Friday week. Like that's a must-win game now, and you just hope maybe Tipperary played their best performances last year under Brendan Cummins in the 2 home games in Thurles against Cork and Waterford. So hopefully, maybe, as I say, similar to the Miners, all is not lost. Like they still have 1 point from 4. If they win their last 2 games, that'll be enough to get them into a semi-final, which is, look, you see the quality of the teams in Munster. It's all about getting into that top 3 and being there for the knockout stage, and they still have a chance. Look, they've done some good things in games. They did, the first 20-25 minutes against Cork, they were excellent. They just need to do more of it for longer.
Yeah, well, look, it's kind of back to the wall at this stage, and Tipperary still in there with a shout, so not all is lost. Conceding 128 now, that is a big enough scoreline to ship down Páirc Uí Chaoimh. But again, a Wednesday night, you're trying to travel down there, get there in time, be fully right. So it's tough going. But still, look, plenty of teams have to travel and try and get in their performance. We want to talk about the Tipperary footballers as well. And, you know, as we've kind of covered week after week, it has been a tough season. But to get a 3-9 to 1-11 win over Waterford in the quarter-final, albeit there is, it's not going to be easy from here on in, but at least it was good to get that victory, and goals for the likes of Stephen O'Brien, Stephen Quirk, and Paddy Feehan got the other one.
Yeah, look, on the positive side, they needed a win. Like they were on a losing streak going back. Look, if you disregard the Munster, the McGrath Cup win over Waterford back in January, like their last competitive win was against Waterford in the last Munster quarter final last year, and then look, you have to. They were really struggling. Like so, So and like, excuse me, I have a tickly throat, but an hour gone and Waterford get the goal to go 1-8 to 1-7 up. You're thinking this has disaster written all over it. Like you knew that was exactly what Waterford wanted to do, but in fairness to Tip, the response was excellent. Didn't panic, went up, got an excellent goal. I suppose maybe a bit fortuitous, maybe in terms of how it came out, the soccer style goal from Jack Kennedy, fumbled the ball 65 out, but soccered it in, and lovely sky drool pass to Stephen Quirk for the finish, and then got another one. So look, just showed you a bit of character, a bit of steel was there to get the win. Like even against probably Waterford, who are probably maybe only London are probably below them in the pecking order, but good to get the win. Like their reward now is to play Kerry in the semi-final, and look, you just hope maybe to do themselves justice, maybe not suffer maybe humiliating defeat. Because I guess Declan Brown, the coach, said afterwards, like, and that's not being defeatist, that's what being realistic. They're planning for Tailteann Cup, and they need to take some bit of momentum into the Tailteann Cup, which is what's going to define Tip's year.
Yeah, I think we need to give your throat a rest at this stage.
Yeah, I know. I have to reveal, like, 3 years on, I finally got struck down with COVID. Like, I managed to avoid it all until this week. So how I got it, I don't know. It's the cough. It's the cough that got me. So hopefully I need to be back match fit for the championship now next week. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, that's it from the show. Don't forget to pick up a copy of the Nina Guardian as well. It's on sale locally. Shane, get well. Cheers.
I'll chat to you later.
Fit next week.